Welcome to the Your Leadership Legacy podcast. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I'm so excited to bring you this next podcast dedicated to you high performers out there who want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, maybe your career, all of it. This podcast is all about being dedicated to transformation and being the best possible leader of yourself and others that you can be in order to create a legacy that lives on. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause. I am the founder and CEO of True You Teams. And here we go. All right, welcome back. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and you are listening to 103.5, The Sun in Sun Prairie. I am so excited because we have such an amazing guest with us today, Erin Sadler. I told you a little bit about her earlier. But Erin is a friend. I met Erin a while back when she was starting Rooted in Purpose is what it was called. And, she's one of those ladies that you meet right away and you just kind of know is going to be a forever kindred spirit. And so I'm really, really excited to share her with you today. She's open, she's bright, she's vulnerable, she's a firecracker. And I just really love and adore her. So welcome, Erin, and thank you so much for being on.
Well, let me say right back at you, ditto, and thank you so much. I don't think I could have gotten a better intro than that. I appreciate that. Very grateful.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolutely. What's so fun about Erin is that, yes, Erin also has a podcast called The Rooted Family and interviewed me yesterday for her podcast interview. So we're kind of just doing the interviews on each other.
We're hanging out on air a whole bunch.
We are, and we both have the Sun Prairie Radio. So we said yesterday we're going to dominate Sun Prairie Radio.
Yeah, that's it. We're going to do some girl power takeover. That's
amazing.
Sure.
Woohoo, let's do it. So originally I met Erin. Erin, what I would love for you to do is just tell us a little bit. I know you've gone from like Rooted in Purpose to the Rooted Family. So tell us how you got started in all of this and what it's all about.
Yeah, well, the really cool thing is, and Tina, I'm sure you feel the same way, is when I start connecting the dots of my life, I realize I've been prepping for this the whole time.
So true.
Even the adversity I faced in my life has led me to where I am today. Yeah. So Tina and I met right when I was looking at starting a nonprofit called Rooted in Purpose to really help families and kids in school with some of the crises we see with stress and anxiety and the emotional things that are going on with children today. When you look at the standard American living statistics for our kids, the outlook is dismal right now. I mean, the statistics don't lie with how our kids are doing. And being a mom of three myself and being a teacher and an educator, and going through my own mindful journey and knowing how important that is to my mental health, I just could not stand by and not do anything anymore.
Right.
So I really dove into the brain research and figured out my whole jam was to try and figure out what it takes to grow a strong, healthy brain. What it takes to grow strong mental resiliency and fortitude so that we can help kids wire these skills early when they're building their brain architecture. And so they don't have to go rewire. Right. I don't want all these damaged adults and then they have to go back and rewire their brains. What if we just wire them right from the first time? Why don't we save ourselves a whole bunch of trouble?
That would have been so much easier on my journey.
I think almost everybody I meet is like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, right.
So I just set out about how to do that. And I came up and made my own curriculum. And then right at that time when we met, Tina, I had written the curriculum out with all the brain research, and I was trying to just explore avenues. I sort of had it all, and I said, now what am I going to do with it? I had been a public school teacher and then a stay-at-home mom, and then I had gone into doing some community outreach work, and I had all the pieces, but I didn't know how I was supposed to lay them out. And then went on to just put that on pause, the Rooted in Purpose on pause. It's still a nonprofit, but it's not functioning right now. Yeah. And went in and started the Rooted Family, which is my company. And what I do is go in and help kids and families through coaching. I go into schools and help kids through my curriculum and my program and teach them the skills they need to grow those strong brains. So that's kind of what I do.
Yeah. So my question, the automatic question that is coming to my mind is, why is this not in schools?
Oh, well, because first there's a couple of reasons. I think one, the education crank takes a long time. And to be honest with you, when I first started doing the research, I was so excited. I was like, wait, how come we're not doing this? What's going on? But I think the cog of turning that giant wheel of education and just how we value our kids today, it's a really slow moving train. I would have loved it if somebody bigger with more clout than I did came along with the same idea and could implement it faster. I really do. But I do find that all these movements start as grassroots movements. And so that's why I really, really want to reach parents. And I started the Rooted Family Circle because parents are how this is going to start. Totally. They're going to start teaching their kids this way. The kids are going to start learning this way. And through that, it's going to evoke change.
Yeah. Because we're talking lineage here, right?
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
I think back on my upbringing. I think about how I brought my kids up. I have 5 kids in their 20s. Yeah. And I think about just what our home life looked like. And it was stressful, and it was emotional outbreaks and stuff like that. And we didn't have the tools in our home. I didn't even have the tools as a parent to really understand that what I was teaching my kids wasn't really what I should be teaching my kids. Yeah. So it's so important that, yes, we put it into the schools, but there's this whole element about there's a whole population of people out there, I'm included, right, where this is parents as well. This is the whole family, which is why I love you took it to the whole family.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think we have spent a long time in education looking at test scores and I think we're starting to move away and realize that that's not the most important thing. But at the very basis, every single decision we make as human beings is based on our emotions. So to not recognize those seems so silly to me. Yeah. To not pay attention to our emotional states seems like a really obtuse way to go about it. Yeah. And when we start cluing into how we feel about things, then we sort of open up the opportunity to have more of that cognitive growth and that cognitive learning. Yeah. I always say, I was just thinking about this yesterday. I had somebody come up to me. So let me say this word, beets. And you probably had some kind of emotional reaction. I met somebody yesterday who loves beets and was telling me like 8 recipes about beets. And I was like, I have never found somebody who loves beets as much as this lady loves beets. And the same token, I had another conversation with a friend who told me how much she disliked beets. Beets are beets.
Right.
But it was their emotional response to it that dictated how they felt and thought about it. The same thing happens when we put, instead of beets, we put the word math in. So if you say math, this is a very interesting thing to do with your kids at home. Ask them how they feel about the subject word. So how do you feel about math? I have one kid in my house who would be like, woohoo, love math. I have the other kid that would probably eye roll and just go, oh. Right. So, but it's not the math, it's how they feel about the math. And until we start helping kids with identifying how they feel about things and knowing that they can navigate through those emotions, we can't let all that learning in. That kid that just said, ugh, about math already put up a growth mindset block about their learning.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about the science behind this. Yeah. Because I preach the same thing, right? From an adult perspective. And so talk to us about the science behind this, because I think that sometimes people poo-poo this subject a little bit. Yeah. Because they don't understand, like, this is science.
Yeah. So the really cool thing is there's so much brain research out there about this. And so that's what I really set out to do, is just really observe what the researchers were saying about all these things. And actually, the very cool study from YLL is that they can observe how you interact with your peers at a kindergarten level, your social emotional responses. They can indicate your success as an adult based on your ability to use your emotions to navigate the situation. Crazy. So when we look in our brain, we have our amygdala, which is our response center to our emotions. If you're not able to calm that in any way or decrease the amount of stress, it's in a constant flare-up. And what happens is your prefrontal cortex, where your cognitive thinking skills are, where we want kids to do things like learn math and learn to read and be open to learning, it is not able to function as well. It's almost like a life-saving mechanism for your brain. Your amygdala is sort of your response, your fight or flight response. Right. And when that gets activated, your ability to rationally think goes down. So when we help children I do it through mindful self-awareness, But when they learn those mindful tricks and to calm themselves and to recenter themselves and those resiliency skills to know that they can get through it, then we give them the tools they need to do that themselves and to calm that amygdala state down and take that stress factor out so that they are open to that reasoning skill that they need in their lives.
Yeah, amazing. So give us a couple of success stories of when you've done that with kids. I know you have probably hundreds of them that you can give, but I love the success stories.
I do.
Yeah.
All right. So one of them that's more recent is one of my coaching kids. And I know his mom will be totally fine with me telling this story. He came to me as a tutoring. So I do private coaching, and he came to me as being behind in math and needed some tutoring with math. And after I sat down with him and just sort of assessed things, I realized he had a huge mindset block. It wasn't his math skills. It was how he felt about math that was holding him back. And so I had approached his parents and said, I'm really thinking it's more of a mindset block. And once we work through that, I'm really thinking those math skills, whatever, if there is any lag, we're going to race through them. But I have to go back and start with the mindset skills. And they were very on board and very open to it. And within 3 weeks of him working on his growth mindset skills and telling himself he can do it. Yeah. And I'm a health coach and a life coach too. So I really believe in actionable steps. So I really break it down with a goal in mind. And then the child and I work through what the steps are to get there. Yeah. So we wrote out our actionable steps about what that has to happen for him to feel good about doing the math without shutting down before he even sits down at the table. And then after we worked through that, all of a sudden he started telling himself, oh, I can do this. Oh, it might be tricky now, but I'll figure it out. And just those little changes opened the whole world up to himself. And I just spoke with his mom and I said, oh, how's everything going? How's the fall? Or is everything still on track? And she's like, it is like night and day. In fact, he came home and the first week he had some homework that he didn't quite understand. But he turned over and he's like, oh, it's going to take me a while, but I'm going to get this.
That's
and she's
amazing.
like, oh, there was no pencil throwing. There was no fit. There was no crying. And she's like, and that wasn't the case in our house 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So that was a huge one for their family. And it changed the whole family dynamic.
How is that? So give us a little reason why.
So often parents don't know what to do when their kid is having a meltdown over their math homework. And to us as parents, when we look at it, we're like, we're going to get through it. It's just the math. But if that child has that stress response triggered every time that math homework comes out, and they have no skills to regulate that, or none of that growth mindset talk within themselves that they can do to coach themselves through it, then it immediately triggers this huge stress response that results in throwing things, crying, resistance, pitching fits. If you have other kids in the house, they're watching all of this happen. Right. So they're also picking up on this pattern of behavior.
And here comes the programming that how we do one thing is how we do everything. And we grow up with those patterns.
Yeah. And then you as a parent are so frustrated yourself, then who knows what your behaviors might be because of the frustration, and so it creates this dynamic between parent and child that is not a positive one. Right. So that's what I really try and do is help reestablish those connection bonds within the family by just teaching kids and parents how we can work together in a connective way to work through those issues we may be having.
Yeah, it's so true. My son ADHD, right?
Yeah,
and so challenges at school, and I've heard you talk about this too, where kids that struggle with whether it's dyslexia or ADHD or whatever it is, when they come in with a different mindset, it just changes everything. Yeah. I mean, I can, like, my household was the throwing and the screaming and the fits and all that kind of stuff at the end of the day with school and stuff like that. And I think that what you bring to the table, it's so simple, but we're not doing it. We're not doing it as a society, and it's something that I think every parent definitely should learn. So that's why you have to follow, anyone who's listening to this, follow the Rooted Purpose, because I know that, or the Rooted Family, because I know that you constantly give out free tools and resources everything else on there.
I do. Yeah. And I will give you my other example because I think this leads into what you just said. Yeah. I had, so I do some workshops, and I'll do some in the fall at Westside with the community schools, and all of Sun Prairie is welcome to attend. But I had a woman in my seminar in the springtime come in, and she kind of sat in the back, and she raised her hand after I had done my whole gratitude. We did all about the brain and gratitude. And she's like, I have a 12-year-old boy who's punching holes in walls. I love everything that you said, but that's not going to work for us. What else do you have? And I get where she was at emotionally. Yeah. I could see the pain in her face.
Right.
And so I challenged her because I had gone through several different activities you could do with as parent-child to help build that gratitude at home. I challenged her to choose one of them and just approach her son and say, in a way that says, would you try this with me? This is new to me too. I've never tried it before. I'm feeling vulnerable. Would you also try this with me? And she agreed reluctantly, but she said, I will try one of them. And I said, come back and tell the group. If it doesn't work, then yes, we're going to look at other things, but just try it. And she went home and tried it. And she said she approached her son. She asked him. He did kind of say, what are we doing? But I think the way she approached it, and that she too put herself out to be vulnerable and said, I don't really, just please try this with me. I went to this class, and she said, and so they started doing it. It was a gratitude. It's called Rowing to Gratitude Island, this activity I do.
Beautiful.
And they think of gratitudes and they breathe at the same time. So it's getting the child to breathe and do that calming breathing exercise while thinking of things they're grateful for, because you can't have a stress response and a gratitude response in your brain at the same time.
Exactly, right.
So as they did that, she said she noticed and he wasn't having a flare-up, but she just noticed an even calmer peace go within him. And part of the activity, too, has touch. So the parent and the child are actually rowing and holding hands. And part of that is part of why I do it, too, because that connected touch helps that neurotransmitter, those oxytocins, that love neurotransmitter.
Trust and safety.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she said at the beginning he was reluctant, but by the end, he was like, Mom, that was kind of nice.
Aww.
And then the next morning, he sort of approached her. He said, if you ever wanted to do that again, I would do it with you.
That's awesome.
And so she came back, and we had
Makes
the best.
My heart happy.
Yeah, we had the best. I was crying.
Yeah.
Oh, we had the best discussion about it. And so I think, but she's and she told me, she's like, I want you to tell that story everywhere you go to teach, because I am the poster child for it will not work.
Right.
And then my kid just wanted that connection with me.
Yeah.
My kid just wanted to connect, but we both didn't know how to do it.
Right, exactly. I totally relate to that. It's hard. I mean, when you've got son and daughter, or sorry, let me rephrase that. When you've got mom and son or dad and daughter, it's hard because we don't always enjoy the same things. We don't always, and so having something like that, a tool, a resource that connects the two of them, that's super huge.
Yeah.
So what does all this stuff do for our future?
If I could teach, and so on a side note too, I also run the Learning Academy over at the Prairie Athletic Club. It's the preschool. So if we can teach kids this in those formative years when they're building their brain architecture, they will have inside of them all those skills they need to know how to calm themselves, to know how to be resilient, to be grateful, to be kind, to have courage. And then you put that human being in this world, there's no stopping them.
Right.
There's no, and even the kids, because I do a lot of research too with traumatic events and children who experience trauma. The research states that if they start employing these skills, the evidence of their trauma starts to diminish.
Right.
So even kids who have had adverse experiences in life, it's because their brains are so still in that formative stage, we can roll back some of that much easier than we can as adults.
Right. Yep. So I was just watching on your Facebook page within the last couple of days, and you had a live out there about a free resource and a tool that you had. And I was like amazed by it. Will you tell the listeners what that is?
So it's my frustration awareness chart. I think that's what you saw. So what it is it's a communication tool between parent and child. It's super simple. Everything I do is super simple. In fact, most of you will probably be like, why didn't I think of that?
Right.
But they're made to be super simple because parents don't have time and kids don't have time nowadays to sit down and do a 30-minute activity. These are 5 to 10-minute activities or activities you can take with you anywhere you go.
Right.
Because let's face it, kids don't just have meltdowns in the convenient spots.
Yeah.
So you need these tools everywhere you go. So our frustration awareness chart is just a chart that sort of shows how the child's feeling inside. It's a communication tool for the child and for grown-ups about where they're feeling so they can communicate to you where they're at. And it starts with 1 being the most calm, and then it goes all the way to 5. And 5 would be like, I'm feeling a meltdown, I'm freaking out, I'm yelling. And that way when and it has little faces so your child can identify. But when your child starts being able to communicate their emotions with you, they're also starting to identify that feeling in themselves. If we've never taught our kids to identify the emotions, then they feel out of control very easily.
Right. Good point.
Yeah, but if you're like, hey, I'm feeling like I'm at a 3, and 3 is sort of where I suggest we start implementing some skills to roll it back to a 1 or a 2, because when it gets to a 4 or a 5, you're in a full amygdala flare up, and it's hard to get it back right there. Usually a 3 is right around the trigger point. So if we can hit it right at the trigger point and your child recognizes that, then they can choose a skill such as mindful breathing or getting some exercise or listening to some music to sort of go back to that state of calm that they were in. And then once they learn that, then they know how to do it. Once they've repeated it, they know how to do it, and they will just start doing it naturally because it becomes the new normal in their neurological framework.
Yeah. What I love about that tool, even just as much, is for the mom or the dad.
Oh, for sure.
Because how cool, I mean, especially for moms, I'm going to speak from a mom perspective because I'm a mom, but like moms are so known for taking care of everyone else and everything else. They don't always take care of themselves. And so what happens is the blow-ups, the flare-ups, like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore kind of a thing, right? And so being able to have that communication with your whole family, even a spouse or your partner, right? Being able to have that communication with the whole family that says, you know what, I'm at a 3 right now. I need to go take a walk. I get to go take a walk. I get to go take a drive, whatever it is. And that is just, in a family unit, so much healthier than like freaking out on people when it gets to that point.
Yeah. And I think as a mom too, for a lot of times, because we're trying to take care of everybody else, we're at a 3, we're at that trigger point, but we're going to let it in ourselves go to a 5.
Yeah.
And so having that self-recognition, like, oh, I'm at a 3 right now, that is a huge indicator that I need to do something differently right in this moment. And going back to the homework scenario, when the kid was sitting at the table pitching a fit about the homework, how does that conversation change when you have that there and the parent saying, I'm feeling at a 4 right now with how the situation's going, and the kid saying, I'm feeling at a 3 right now. Okay, together, what can we do to change that so that's not the dynamic? And I will say, if not only is that in the free resources, but the whole action plan for how to do that is in all my free resources too.
Awesome.
So I have a book called Parenting the Frustrated Child, which is completely free. It's a free ebook, and it's on my free resources, but it will walk you through how to do that with your child. It's not a bunch of theory. It is actually the action plan about how you do this.
Which is what's missing, right? Like I think back to a time when my kids were in high school, and in those moments when we are at a 3 and now the whole family just went to a 5 because of whatever came home, whatever.
Yeah.
And so now we're all at a 5. And it's such a game changer to have something in the household that you can really go back to. So where do people find those free resources?
So if you just go to therootedfamily.com and click free resources, you'll be right there.
Okay.
You just get right in, and the ebook's right there too. You can get all of that there. And it was so funny. I just had a friend ask me, they're like, why didn't you publish that? And I said, because I just wanted to get it in the hand. I mean, I could wait another year to get it. I just want to get it in the hands of people that need it. And I think I still have them on my bedside table. My kids are grown, and I probably still have some How to Parent Your Child books from when they were 3 or 4, and they're already school aged. Nobody has time to read a huge book. And even if you did buy a parenting book, did you not just flip through to like, give me the goods? Like,
you just want to know how.
Where is your system in this book? I don't want it. So I took it all out. I just gave you the system for how to do it. I give you a little bit of what to look for, but the whole book's about 50 pages, and then I give you the framework and the charts for how to do it that you can just print out and do with your kids.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
One of my questions was going to be like, how can everybody be part of this solution? Because this isn't going to happen unless we all I feel like it's kind of a revolution, like it's a movement, like this is a way that we can change our lives for the better, starting with ourselves, and it moves into our family, and the ripple effect that happens is just incredible. So if I'm out there right now
yeah.
and I'm listening to you and I'm one of those moms where I'm like, oh my God, this happens in my house on the daily.
Yes.
Where do I even start?
Okay.
I mean, other than going to your site, and I know that stuff is there, but I have to imagine that it feels really overwhelming.
I'm sure. Yeah, it feels. I know because I went through my
Ditto.
own.
Yeah.
So I always say you have to start with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to start with how you want to feel about the situation. Before you can change anybody else, you have to have some self-awareness of how you want to feel. And then making those steps, whether that is through mindfulness or whether that is through just making a journal every day, whether that is starting through a gratitude practice, but realizing where you want to start, and then you can lead everybody else. And then I will tell you where I see a huge difference being made, because I understand I'm only one person. I can only be so many places. But I have the Rooted Family Circle, which is our monthly membership. Parents can go in. Right now there's founders pricing. Parents can go in and they get a parent blueprint every month.
Beautiful.
So they get whatever the topic is. We change the topic every month. You get a blueprint. You get a parent coach card. You get a brain explain for parents. So I explain to you what's going on in your kid's brain. The kids get a brain explain with like graphics that pop up. I look like Mary Poppins with things floating around my head. And then you also get games for your kids. And these are short, easy games, a breathing to do with your kids, and then family journals for the whole family, 3 through adult.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so then you also get live coaching with me every month included in that.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. My parents just jump on. We all do a live coaching. We help each other out, and we build this community. Because if you decide you're going to do something differently in your family, all of a sudden you start noticing, oh my gosh, I'm starting to feel like I'm the only one who's realizing my kids need to practice gratitude.
Right.
So this is a community where you can feel like, all right, I see the brain research, I believe this, and so there's like-minded people in there.
Yeah, and what's hard about when you start making a change like that,
Yes.
especially when you start making changes on yourself, and people in your day-to-day aren't, right? Like
Right.
you're doing this for yourself, which is amazing, but now people start to notice that because you're showing up differently.
Right.
You know, and sometimes that's amazing, and sometimes
Yes.
it causes a little bit of a rumble. So having that community in place,
Right.
where you can go and say, oh my gosh, I tried this and I failed, help me. Or
Yes.
I tried this and it was a huge success, and other people can learn from that is
Yes.
so critical. You're not
Exactly.
alone. Like I
Yes.
think I felt like I was alone for so long, and we're not alone. There's so many amazing tools and resources out there.
Yeah, and I find that once you start putting it out there, then all of a sudden people start like crawling out of the
Yeah.
woodwork like, I believe that. You know,
Yeah.
it's just so funny. I find that with teachers all the time, that they're like, this is what, and that's why they asked me to come. They're like,
Yeah.
we need this. We're so glad this was made. Bring it to us.
Yeah.
We've been looking for it.
Yeah. So that's the change, right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like that you, Erin, that's a change that you're trying to make in the world. Like this
Yeah.
belongs in schools. We should be learning this from
Right.
0 to 8.
100%.
Again, we go back to science from 0 to 8. Like that's who we are.
Yeah.
Our experiences that we have, that's what molds us. That's who we end up growing up as. And so when we have an intentional plan to not only teach our kids that, but if we're past that and we're teaching ourselves that and teaching ourselves to lead ourselves,
Yeah.
it opens up doors and possibilities, and it creates healthy relationships and families, and it's just a beautiful thing.
It is. It is
Yeah.
so beautiful. And I get to see it. The best part is I get to see it with kids.
Yeah.
You know, when I see these kids do it, I can't tell you how many times I tear up and like try to act like I'm not tearing up, because when I see a kid use that skill and then they just move on with their life.
Yeah.
At a time when it used to cause them to stop everybody in their path. And now they're moving through life and they feel successful. It's so rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that time went fast. Our time is up. And so I want to thank you, Erin, for being on. You're such a bright light in this world, and you're up to really big things that are going to change the world. And I can't wait to see what else you create.
Thank you so much for having me on. I am honored. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our programs and events at trueyouteams.com. And until next time, make it an amazing day.